Welcome to Notes from a Drama Watcher, a podcast about East Asian dramas. It's part recap, part review, and there will definitely be spoilers ahead. Welcome to Notes from a Drama Watcher. This is your host, Em. Welcome back if you've been here before, and welcome if you are new. Today we're going to be talking about episodes 9 through 16 of High School Frenemy. So I did talk about episodes 1 through 8 in my previous podcast, which is episode 44 of Notes from a Drama Watcher, if you want to check that out. So in this episode, I'm not going to go episode by episode like I normally do. I'm just going to speak in general and then talk a little bit about the characters of the show. Because as I said in my previous episode, I have just a lot of thoughts about this show and things that happens in the show. And one of the things that I have a lot of thoughts about is the character development in the show. So episodes 9 through 16. Now that Saint and Shin are getting along better, albeit with a few more bumps in the road, we start to get a little more into the storylines of the other characters. Over the course of the next few episodes, we get to see Peta, who's one of Saint's friends, deal with the immense pressure from her mom to get good grades and have a good portfolio to get into a good college, to the point where it begins to affect her mental state, and it leads to rifts between herself and her best friend, Eve. Both of them actually were friends of Saint, because they were from the original school before the other school joined their campus. We also get to see Cable, who is the son of the principal. He also is someone who suffers under immense pressure from his mom, and he has to decide if he's gonna just continue to go along with what she wants him to do, or if he's going to take a stand and, maybe force his mom to see the damage that she is doing by applying all this pressure. At least my interpretation, it's not fully clear what happened to his brother. They just kind of say he went away, and because of the pressure from the mother. And I still am not fully clear what they mean. Like, did he just physically go move away and doesn't have anything to do with them? Or did he take his own life? I don't know. Either way, I wouldn't be surprised because we just get to see Cable always just looks so sad and upset and just as if he's about to break, the amount of pressure that he's under. So I can only imagine what his brother went through as well. We also get to see the home life of resident bully Ken, and we see the reason that he's the way he is, or a reason. I'm not sure it excuses all of his behavior necessarily, but it is an explanation of sorts. We get to see that his father, or they say his father was a gambling addict or owes money in gambling. And in turn, that means Ken owes money. And because of this money that they owe, that's how Ken gets mixed up with Jang, the leader of the Dragon Fang, because they, as a family, I guess, owe all this money. Now, along with having this gambling problem, he also appears to have a drinking problem. And we see at one point where he just is beating on Ken. And it's obviously an abusive household. He's mad at the father, is mad at the world. He's mad at this money he owes. He's mad at Ken, I guess, just for whatever Ken's getting up to in school. And he's mad at the mom. The mom left, and they say a few times in the show, she left and she started another family elsewhere in another town. I don't know this mom. We never see her or anything, but I really wonder about her. I don't think this father, we don't see them in the past. We see flashbacks for Saint and Shin, but we don't see flashbacks for anyone else. So we don't see Ken's life before the show starts. I don't know if his father has always been that way. I'm assuming yes, if the mother basically escaped and started a new life elsewhere. And I'm just wondering why she didn't take Ken with her. If this guy was that abusive, you just left your kid there with this man who, the father is a big guy, actually, pretty muscular. He's like twice the size of Ken. And you just left your kid in that situation. I mean, I don't know. We don't see what happens. I don't know laws in Thailand as far as custody goes. Maybe fathers have more rights. I'm not sure. But if it's not that fathers have more rights, it's just terrible that Ken was left in this situation with this man. As I said, they show us this so we see a reason for his behavior. Again, I'm not sure that it fully excuses things because Not only was he fighting other students, but he was going after other like girls and women. He almost hit Miss Jan at one point. I believe it was episode 2 where he almost hit her. He almost hit Eve at one point. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if he's has some sort of anger against women because of his mom abandoning him, but still, he's going around trying to hit girls and women and his teacher of all people. I understand what they were trying to show us. Again, I'm not sure how much that excuses what he did. I don't know. We don't really know everything he went through. We just saw this glimpse, but we see that it was a rough life in this part that we saw. And actually, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. In one of the later episodes, a little something that I thought was a little bit unrealistic was that Miss Jan actually goes to speak to the father when she finds out a bit about the situation. It's sort of like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna change. It's like, that's not really realistic. I don't know. Um, it just seems a bit unrealistic that after one talk with someone, is she the first person that ever spoke to him and said, like, don't treat your kid that way? Or what you're doing is creating a bad situation? Maybe she is the first person who said that to him. I don't know. But people don't change that quickly. But it was nice that she went and attempted it. I'm just curious how long his change of heart lasted. And besides Ken, we saw again, like I said, Cable, PETA. We saw a little bit more of Chad Jen. We learned a little bit more about him. And we get to see Saint and Shin drawing closer and closer as the episodes progress, even to the point where I believe this was episode 9. Saint, Shin, and Ching Ching go to have noodles at Saint's father's noodle truck. And we get to see when, as they're approaching, Saint's father doesn't see who it is. And Saint's like, oh, I'm bringing our old customers here. And then Chin Chin goes running off to greet Saint's dad. And she's happy to see him. And he's really happy to see her. And we see that it shows us once again how intertwined Saint and Shin's families were. It wasn't just their friendship, it was the families that were friends with each other. And it really brings home to me something that I was like really thinking of as I was watching the show more and more, or more episodes, is that I think a big part of Shin's mom's anger and hurt was not just about the fact that her son was hurt, that it was Saint of all people who did it. Someone she considered like another son to her. He slept over at her house. I'm sure she fed him. There's in episode 11, there's a part where Shin is talking about when his mom was getting divorced. And he was talking to Saint, who was staying over at his house. This is a flashback scene. But in the present, he was saying how much better everyone felt in the house with Saint being there. Saint just made everyone feel better. And so the show is about Saint and Shin's relationship and the sense of loss that Shin felt when when he felt that Saint, or when Saint did abandon him. But also it was a big sense of loss for Shin's mom as well. Not only was Shin betrayed, but in a sense, so was she. When she discovers that they're actually talking again, it causes another misunderstanding between Saint and Shin because Saint doesn't want them arguing again. He doesn't want to be the cause of a rift. And Shin views that as, oh, you're walking away again. You're abandoning this friendship again. So it's another rift. It's like 2 steps forward, 1 step forward, 2 steps back for these two. All of that causes them to finally really have a confrontation and conversation where Shin is able to unburden himself and make Saints understand that the biggest problem was not the broken leg itself, but that Shin felt abandoned. And he doesn't want to feel that again. Saints can't do that again to him. So they need to be on the same page. This reunion or reconciliation was facilitated in a way by Mr. Sung and Miss Jan, who Chad Jen turned to for help when he saw that Shin and Saint were fighting yet again. So as I said before, Chad Jen's one of the most important characters in this show. If it wasn't for him, I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't be talking to each other until like the 5-year high school reunion or something. They would not be talking to each other as quickly as they were if Chad Jen wasn't advocating for them to rekindle their friendship. So they've now become a unit again, and it allows them to look beyond the problems between them and to see the problems of the people around them. And we see in later episodes, even Ken not so much Ken, but Not and Nate going to them for help, for advice, sort of, and trying to help them get Ken out of the situation that he's in. And it's just kind of a reminder the way we see that they are, where they're talking and people are coming to them for their thoughts and for their help. It's just a little bit of a reminder that Shin and Saint actually are older than their fellow students. Shin, because he was out when he was hurt, and Saint just left school, right? Because he kind of went through a depressive episode, right? It's a depression. He says at one point that he kind of like didn't care about anything. He just came looking for Shin all the time, wanting to see Shin. So they are older than everyone else. And it's almost as if they decide to take on this mantle of responsibility as the more mature students. And it shows in the way that they really think about what's happening to the people around them and care about what's happening. We see it several times. Like they try to figure out how they can help Ken, not only because they care, but also because Nate and Not ask them to. We see when Miss Jan is going through a professional crisis, an emotional crisis in a sense. They see that she's feeling bad and they think about how they can help her. Them and Chad because Chad is just a very empathetic person, right? So he wants to help people. And they even realize, or Shin realizes about Cable, because Cable runs away from home at one point and no one knows where he is. We actually did sort of figure out where he was because everyone was questioning where he was. And if you hear anything from Cable, let them know. And this whole time, that this is being said, Chad just had this really strange look on his face, and he kept pressing his lips together as if he didn't want to spill the secret. And I was thinking to myself, he knows where Cable is, and Cable's probably in his house, which it did turn out to be. So when Shin and Saint find this out, they don't run and tell the principal, "Oh, we know where your son is," or even Miss Jan and Miss Sung that Mr. Sung that they have a good relationship with. They kind of keep it a secret, and they go to see Cable themselves to see if they can talk to him about coming back, etc. So they really do kind of take on this sense of responsibility for the younger students around them. And even when Peta goes through her emotional crisis, you see that Sky feels really bad about the fact that he didn't see what was going on with her, which on the one hand that's his friend, so yes, he has some sense of responsibility or he feels a sense of responsibility in that sense, but also that's kind of for the adults. The adults around her really didn't see it either. Her best friend didn't see it either. So unfortunately, there were a lot of people who missed the signs, but he takes it on as sort of like this is a personal responsibility of his. And again, I think I don't know if it's just because they're older or that it's just because that's the way they are, that he just feels like he's sort of responsible for taking care of the people around him and try to help them with the problems that they may have. So it's actually such a relief to see Shin and Saint finally get through the things they needed to talk and to finally become a unit again. They still in episodes, 9 through I think all the way through 15. They still don't have the blessing of mom yet, but at least in school, at least when they're hanging out together, they get to fully be themselves and become that tight unit that they once were. And episode 11 is actually the episode where they finally talk, but when Shin finally says, "I'm so glad you're my friend," and the relief and the emotion on Saint's face, he's been waiting so long to hear that. Not that much time is passing on the show, right? They sort of it's probably weeks that they've been going through, but he hasn't heard Shin call him his friend in more than 3 years. You can tell it just touches him down to his soul to finally hear those words from Shin. And Shin also, I think, has this sense of relief of having his friend back, his brother back. If you consider this a BL, he was his boyfriend back, but it is a bromance the way GMMTV has it. So these two soulmates are finally back together. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to see. Actually, episode 12 is probably my favorite episode of the show when they're finally sort of reveling in the fact that they could call each other friends again. And Saint is able to stand by Shin's side as his friend, as his best friend, as he keeps pushing for it, and be accepted by Shin's friends as well, that he has the right to stand beside him and to be with him. And it's actually really cute too, the scenes that they have together, because Saint is so happy to to be by Shin's side again. And Shin, though he does protest a little bit, like, oh, Saints, you're being sappy and cheesy, whatever. He loves it too. He loves that he has Saint by his side again. I think he was probably living with a big hole, feeling like there was a hole in his heart, or, there was someone there next to him that should have been there and they weren't there for years. And even though he made other friendships, he had his friendship with Chajen, it was not the same. And though Shin has this cold, aloof exterior, we see that he is someone who feels very deeply and is very sensitive. So, it just hurt his soul not to have Saint with him. And even more so for Saint, because Shin has these other friends, right? But Saint, he's friendly with Peta and with Eve. But I really think the only person he needs in his life, besides his dad, I'm not talking about family, the only person he needs in his life is Shin. So he really had no one for those 3 years. Shin actually did have some people around him, even though it wasn't the same. But Saint had no one for those 3 years. And I don't think that he feels like he needs anyone else, to be honest with you. He just needs Shin. And now he finally has Shin, and by extension, Ching Ching, and by extension, Shin's mom, who was like his mom. Especially remember, we know that it seems like we know that Saint's mom passed away, but we don't know when she passed away. So Shin's mom was probably really his mom for a good portion of his life. So he lost that too. And as I said, I've gotten into a little bit of detail, but not too much episode by episode. The rest of the show is really them, now that they are a unit, helping other people or seeing how they can help other people. So I just want to talk a little bit about the characters on this show, because I just think they're all really interesting. It's not always that you get a show where you care about other people besides the main leads. And here you do care. I'll kind of go person by person. As I said, Ken, we find out a little bit about his background and some reasons for why he is the way that he is. Nate and Not, the twins, we don't get too much into their story, but we do see that those three have a very tight friendship with each other. And so when Ken gets in trouble, it's Nate and Not that try to get help for him. They don't abandon him. They have a very tight friendship. Eve and Peta are another tight friendship group. Peta, as I said, is under immense pressure from her mom, and it causes the rift between her and Eve. And so some of the episodes are dedicated to this rift between them, and Eve not understanding what exactly is going on. She's just in pain herself, and Peta being in pain as well, being in emotional pain. Cable, I already talked a little bit about his story. He does have growth in the show, because in the beginning he's just keeping everything inside, and he does learn to speak up for himself a little bit, which is good. And by extension, we see his mom actually grows as well, because she does come to realize that she needs to loosen the reins a little bit. And it's kind of through actually Saint's dad that she realizes this, because he's just happens to be talking to her, and it's kind of like, oh, the happiest thing is just to see them eating and enjoying. And she's realized, like, oh yeah, I should be happy about that he's healthy, he's with friends. She gets to finally see him with friends and see how relaxed he looks among his friends, and also sees his friends are the other Saints, Shin, Chaja, people from class 2 that are just kids. They're not the big troublemakers that everyone is saying they are, whatever. They're just kids. And they're actually good kids, because they took care of your son when he needed it. We get to find out more about Miss Jan in these later episodes. Her father was a teacher, and so it's her goal to be kind of as good of a teacher as her father. This is going to be a controversial opinion, because I see a lot of people love Miss Jan. I love Miss Jan too. I think she's a great person, a great human being. I don't know how she is as a teacher. We don't see her teach really. They don't have the time for her to show her teaching. It's good that your kids see your students. I'm saying your students see that you are a human being and you have good days and bad days like any other human being. On the other hand, I think she was very emotional in spots and was in some ways making her students take on her emotional labor. I don't know that it's fair to the students to see you breaking down and sort of not in control. And I actually didn't talk about this in the first podcast. But yeah, because it didn't happen in those episodes. So in these episodes, it's somewhere in episodes 9 through 16. I think it was episode 10. They are there's some cheating going on in the school. They don't know who's doing the cheating. It's for the test, whatever. And she's upset that I guess the students would feel the need to cheat. And she takes their hands. She's going down the line. Some of the students are lined up. She's going down the line and making them hit her hand with their hand. And it's freaking the students out. Understandably so. I don't know that, again, I think they wanted to show to the students that she's a human being and she gets hurt about things, but making them hit you with their hands, I don't know. I don't know about that. So, as great as she is as a human being, as a person, very caring person. I actually think she'd probably make an excellent school counselor. I don't know if they have that position in Thai schools. I mean, a lot of American schools need more than one counselor in them, and they don't because there's no funding. But I think she'd probably be really great at that. But as a teacher, I don't know. We don't see it. We don't get to see it. Mr. Sung, he's the tough love part of the equation. I don't know what we get to. I don't know what there is to say about him. I don't think he changes much in the show. We get to see a little bit about something that happened in his past that affects how he is now, but I don't know that he changed much. He still kept the tough love approach throughout the show. He does become a little softer, I think, towards the end, or maybe it's just that the students understand him better. I don't know. And Chad, who again I love Chad. I think he's a great character. He is someone who came into Shin's life when Shin really needed him. I think Shin, I don't know that I've said this before, I think Shin is a nurturer and someone who needs to take care of others. Now, it's probably because he has to take care of Ching Ching so much, right? And he loves it because he's very soft with her and everything. But I think that he, in a way, took care of Saint when they were younger. And then Saint wasn't around anymore, and he needed someone who needed him, who he could kind of take care of, and I think that's Chajan. And we learn later that Chajan's parents wanted him to go to that school, to like really a tough school. So as they say, help him grow up a little bit, which that school kind of forces you to because it's really rough. So I think Chajan needed Shin as well, someone who would nurture him, not pressure him, but help him to grow and to be around good people and tough people, right? Because that's how life is. You're around all kinds of people. Saint's dad, we don't see a lot of him, but what we do see, I think is quite interesting. So this show is based off of School 2013, which is a Korean drama. I started that one, didn't finish it. It was actually pretty similar. What I did see was pretty similar to the Thai version. They didn't change a ton, at least in what I saw. But I didn't get to the point of seeing the father. And I did read in the Korean version that the father was also abusive and everything, like Ken's dad. In the show, in the Thai version of the show, High School Frenemy, Saint's dad is not like that at all. He's actually a sweet guy. He is someone who talks to Saint, who wants to help Saint, who understands Saint. And it's really interesting to see him like that because he has an alcohol problem, but he's not a jerk. And then on the other hand, we have Ken's father, who also seems to have an alcohol problem and is a complete jerk. So it's just interesting that you have these two really diametrically opposed characters who both have the same sort of problem, but the outcome is different. Saint's dad is just kind of becomes sappy and is sleeping over there. And unfortunately, that means Saint has to take care of him in some ways. But Saint never has to fear that his father is going to beat him up or speak to him in a certain way or anything like that, like Ken does. So I think that's a big part of the reason that Saint is the way he is too. Actually, not quite sure why he even did the whole gang thing in the first place when he was younger. But I think a big part of him being a good guy is just seeing that his dad is just a good guy. And so as he matured after what happened with Shin, it just pushed him further towards the path of like, okay, I don't have to go around treating people like crap. It's not necessary because his dad doesn't do that. So it was just interesting to me to see his dad's character. I hope he gets help with his alcohol issue, but as a person, as a dad, he was a good guy, is a good guy. I actually wonder how he was before the mother passed away. I suspect he probably did not have that drinking problem. That's probably the loneliness that is causing that drinking. So yeah, Saint and Shin, not much more to say about their characters. They've grown over the show and they've found each other again. I know I was reading some people want a season two. I don't know. I don't know that we need a season two necessarily, but it's good to see that by the end these soulmates are back together. Their families are back together in a sense. We never actually see Saint's dad and mom together in any scene, but clearly they were close enough to know each other's, the dad knows Ching Ching and she calls him uncle, and the mom called Saint her son at one point. And at least they do have where they go forward and we see a little bit in the future that she's back to calling him her son again. And which they didn't translate that, interestingly enough, but I don't speak Thai. I've only caught a few words here and there from watching so many Thai shows, but I thought I heard her calling him son. But anyway, he's back to sleeping at their house and eating breakfast with them and whatever. So it was just really beautiful to see. I really enjoyed this show overall. I said before in the previous episode, I definitely recommend people watching the show. If you're someone who only watches BLs, make an exception for this show, please. And I would say Peaceful Property as well, but definitely at least for the show. I'm very excited to see Woo when it comes out, which Sky and Nanny are going to be in again. I don't know when they'll get the chance to film it because they both are just super busy right now, getting brand deals all over the place. I just saw that Sky is actually going to be doing some voice acting. He's going to be a voice, one of the characters on Lilo and Stitch, which actually I've never even seen. Lilo and Stitch 2. I've never seen the original, but if you were a fan of the original, just know Sky's going to be doing a voice on the part two, the Thai version. So, also, if you have not had a chance to see the behind the scenes for High School Frenemy, I would definitely say to check out the behind the scenes because they are very cute. Particularly episodes 10 and 12 behind the scenes, I just found really cute. And I will go back and rewatch them every so often. But thanks for listening. Hopefully, in the next episode, I ran out of time to talk about study group here because this episode's really, really long. But maybe in episode 46 of the podcast, I will get a chance to talk about study group. Thanks for listening. I hope everyone is well. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me at dramawatchernotes at gmail.com. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter as Notes from a Drama Watcher. All right. Take care, everyone.